What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another one. If you're stopping by the channel for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. And while you guys are at it, go ahead and smash that like button. I want to share some information with you guys. And I was thinking about this for the last couple of days. I've been getting a lot more emails, messages, comments on my previous videos on investing, side hustles, home-based businesses that can be start from home with little to no money out of pocket. My videos on how to compound your money starting with $1,000 or even less than $1,000 in your bank account, because all these things are possible, guys. And I really appreciate the love that I've been getting from you guys, because you guys inspire me. I'm reading your messages, all your comments. I don't necessarily respond to all of them, but I do read all of them. And I appreciate the fact that I'm knowing that I'm motivating you guys to move forward with your own personal finance goals, to achieve financial freedom and to build wealth. And I think that the key here that we always have to remember, as you're in this journey, is to have proper expectations. And there's something that I learned. In fact, there's a number of things that I learned over the years, mainly from doing things wrong, but also from learning from my mentors, who are, priceless people in my life who have taught me things to help accelerate the wealth building process. And I was just thinking to myself, like, if only I knew some of these things earlier in life, like if I knew some of these secrets and hacks that I discovered over the years, if I knew about these things, say in my 20s, I would be drastically farther ahead in life. But even if you learn these things in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, they're always going to be relevant principles. Obviously, the best time to have planted a tree was 10 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But the next best time to plant a tree is now, right? And so the first thing I wanted to share with you guys is properly setting your expectations when investing in the stock market. Now, if you're investing in stocks, ETFs, index funds, the principle still applies. And you can invest using M1 Finance, Webull, Robinhood, Fidelity, E-Trade, Betterment. They're all great platforms, but the thing that causes people to lose money is not having the proper expectation. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that someone had commented previously saying, isn't my 401k tied to the stock market? And if the stock market's going down, then doesn't that mean that my 401k is going down too? And the short answer is yes. Your 401k is generally, in most cases, depending upon what you're invested in inside of your 401k at your 9-to-5 job, or at your, basically a 401k is just an employer sponsored retirement account. And in most cases, employers will match whatever contributions you make into it. And so it's like getting free money if your employer is matching you. Now, if you're investing in stock market assets, paper assets like index funds, ETFs, target-based index funds and ETFs and whatnot, then yes, you are going to see fluctuations and volatility in your 401k. But keep in mind, though, you're not looking to sell these investments tomorrow, So you want to keep in mind that, yes, asset prices and asset values will go up and down. But the thing you have to remember is that while they're going up, yes, your account values are going up and your assets are appreciating and you're building wealth. But one thing that I didn't learn until later in life is that, not to freak out when asset prices decline, because generally speaking, it's very temporary. And the other thing is that while the asset prices are declining, these assets are on sale. And so understanding this basic principle changed my perspective on seeing stock markets collapse and stock markets crash. When stock markets have pullbacks, these are tremendous buying opportunities. And this is what this is how wealth is built. This is how real wealth is built. They're taking full advantage of these stock market pullbacks. They're buying great companies. Look at Warren Buffett. He talks about this all the time. Buying great companies at a discount. Many of these companies, they pay dividends, especially the companies like the dividend aristocrats. These are companies that have been paying dividends on a consistent basis and increasing their dividends over the past 25 years. And if you've been watching, if you've looked and tracked the S&P 500 over the last 50 or 100 years, generally speaking, you're going to see a 7 to 10% rate of return on your money. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get 7 to 10% every single year. But if you're investing on a regular basis and not getting shaken out of the market because you're scared, then you're going to be able to take full advantage of the weak hands in the market that missed out on the gains. And if you're doing like I'm doing, and I'm not telling you how to manage your money. Everybody manages their own money their own way. You should always do your own due diligence. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax advisor, but I have been investing for well over 20 years. And so in my experience, by not selling when I got scared, by not selling when the stock market crashed, it was a little bit uncomfortable certainly the first time, but the second time it was less uncomfortable. And the third market crash that I was involved in was far less uncomfortable, because it's like when you get on a roller coaster and you ride it a couple of times, it's like, you understand that, okay, there's a drop coming, right? And then it's like not quite as scary as the first time. And when you begin to anticipate these drops, then you start to set yourself up properly so that you can actually bank off of these drops. And one thing I used to do is I would do my dollar cost averaging on a regular basis. Money goes into M1 Finance, some money goes over here into Fidelity, some money's going over into my maybe my Webull account and whatnot. And they're making purchases. And of course, my 401k is steadily buying stocks, buying index funds. And so I'm not all that worried about the day-to-day minutia in the stock market, right? Because I understand that when the market goes down, I'm literally being able to, it's like going into like a Walmart or something and buying stuff, groceries that are normally like, let's just say, I don't know how much eggs are right now, but let's just say eggs are $3 normally, and you go in the store and they're like $1.50, right? So that means you got a 50% discount. Well, you'd be really happy and you buy more eggs. And this is how I look at the stock market. When I see these discounts, it's like everybody's freaking out, like, oh, I need to sell. And I'm like, all right, y'all go ahead and sell. I'm gonna go ahead and buy more of the quality companies. Now don't go, I'm not gonna go out there and buy cheap, crappy companies. That's not smart, right? But that's I'll save that conversation for another day. But the thing that I would do before even investing in the stock market, the one thing, there's several things I would do before investing in the stock market, but one thing for sure, I would make sure I have an emergency fund. And my emergency fund's got to be at least, I know they say 3 to 6 months, but I'm a more conservative person. I won't even begin to remotely feel comfortable if my emergency fund's not at least a year. My emergency fund needs to at least cover all of my yearly expenses. I'm talking mortgage, food, insurances on my cars, cell phone bills, grocery expenses, utility bills, internet, TV or cable. I want all my expenses totaled out. And whatever that total is for the year, that's what I want in an emergency fund. That's just me. I'm a little bit extra conservative from that standpoint. You might be good with 3 to 6 months. The other thing I would be doing before investing in the stock market, even as a beginner, is, and I would also just kind of go back on the emergency fund. I'd have my emergency fund spread out across multiple banks. Now, we've talked about banks collapsing recently, and I've always done this, but I don't know how many other people do this. So I have banking diversification. So in other words, it's diversification among the banks. So in other words, I don't have one bank account, and I certainly don't have one bank account for my emergency fund. So my emergency fund is dispersed or diversified among multiple banks that are all FDIC insured, and there's some of the best banks that I was able to find paying the highest yielding savings accounts, because we already know inflation is high. So the last thing you want to do is get further wealth destruction against your emergency fund by having a low interest savings account, right? But another thing that I would do before investing in the stock market, which I wish I knew in my 20s and 30s, is to invest in myself and go hard on that, right? So one of the things that I like to do And this is why college is not for everybody. Like, I'm not even telling my kid he has to go to college. In fact, we're not really having that discussion so much. So he kind of thinks he has to go, but I haven't told him that he can or that basically he has the option. But for me, I had a pretty good understanding when I came out of high school, kind of looking around at things, looking at, what teachers are getting paid. I had already worked several jobs by the time I was 18 years old, and working with older people, I realized, there are certain jobs I just didn't want to do. And I didn't want to be living the lives of some of the miserable adults that I was working with as a kid. Like, for example, I worked in many restaurants, but I worked in this one restaurant. I was like washing dishes, and there was like people that were like twice my age or more also washing dishes. Like I was like working with a 55-year-old person when I was like 16 or 15 years old washing dishes. And I'm thinking to myself, yo, like I make like $5.25, $5.50 an hour. Like you can't be making that much more than me. And I know you have a family. And I'm like looking at this person and they look so sad and they're so much older than me. And yet I'm there working as a 15-year-old kid because I want to buy like stuff like sneakers, clothes, video games and whatnot. But this person next to me, like they're there because they had to. They had a family to provide for, and they were clearly not happy working there, and they were just like pretty much unhappy and upset with life. So after encountering a number of adults in that situation, I was like, yo, I do not want to ever be in this job at that age. I don't want to be working a job that's underpaying me, and I don't want to be miserable every day of my life. So that experience showed me early on that there's some jobs I just don't want to take. So I started paying more attention to the different types of jobs that were out there. And I also observed the fact that some of the people I was working with had college degrees. And I was like, yo, hold on. Like, for example, there was like a supervisor at the restaurant, and they had a college degree. It was a 4-year college degree. And like, we got cool to a point where we were just talking one day, and she was telling me that she had a 4-year degree and she wasn't able to get the kind of job that she had hoped for. I don't remember what kind of degree she had, but basically she was only making like $11.50 an hour as a supervisor in this restaurant. Now, granted, this is like 20 years ago, so it's not like today's money, but the simple fact of the matter is that I realized that, okay, college does not guarantee a high income. Not to say you shouldn't go to college, but I'm just saying that it doesn't guarantee a high income. Also, some people don't complete college, because I had a friend who went to college, didn't finish, had $70,000 in college loans and no college degree because they couldn't keep their grades up, and basically it was a lack of commitment. They were smart enough, but they just didn't commit. So they had all the student loans, none of the benefits of going to college, such as the college degree. And so now they're stuck with this college debt, among credit card debt and car payments and all this other debt. And they've essentially financially destroyed themselves right out the gate. So I decided one of the things I decided to do was spend a little bit of time figuring out what are the highest paying jobs that are out there that don't require college degrees. And so I started my search and I began to narrow it down. And then before I realized it, I was like, yo, I don't want to waste any more time in college. At this point, I had already changed my degree or my major multiple times because I kept flip-flopping. I wanted to go into business. Then I wanted to be a nurse. Then I wanted to be a computer science major. Like, I kept changing my degrees, not necessarily in that order, but I kept changing my degrees. And the next thing I know, I was like, man, y'all over here wasting all this time. Like, and that was the thing that killed me about college. Like, you spend so much time taking classes you're not going to need in life. And meanwhile, you're paying for it, not only with your money, but you're paying for it with your time. And that would just irritate the crap out of me. And I'm like, so anyway, I got to a point where I'm like, I will figure out how to make more money, not have the college debt. Because for the time that I was in college, I was paying for it out of pocket. I didn't go to some expensive college. I basically worked a job while going to college. And so as college bills and expenses came up, I was paying for it rather than racking up that debt. So I had no student loans ever. That's one thing that my mom told me early on. She was like, Ronnie, stay away from them student loans. I was like, all right, mom, if I ain't listen to nothing else, because I sure didn't listen to everything she told me, but I made sure to stay away from those student loans. She told me to always, make sure I pay my bills on time. She told me how important credit is. Don't get me wrong. Credit is important, but it's not everything. So there's benefits to credit, but I'm not going to break my neck to try to get an 850 credit score. There's more things that are important than that. Trust me. And you don't need credit to build wealth, though it helps. So definitely increase your income. If you have a college degree, great. Leverage it. Use it if you can. If you don't, find the highest paying jobs that are out there that don't require college degrees, which I have found several. And I did that. I leveraged that. The other thing is make sure you have an emergency fund before investing in the stock market. Again, I'm not telling you what to do with your money, but if I were talking to my younger self, I would be telling myself, get your emergency fund set up. Make sure it's serious. Make sure it's beastly. Make sure it's safe and protected. It's all about planning and preparation. Take full advantage of your 401k, right? If your employer is matching you whenever you make a 401k contribution, get that free money that they're giving out. Where else can you get a 100% rate of return with zero risk? You know what I'm saying? If you put $1,000 in and your employer is going to match you $1,000, why wouldn't you take the $1,000? And I've done this for, I don't even know how many years, well over probably 10 or 15 years doing that. Right. So just imagine your employer gives you, it usually depends on where you work, how much of an employer match they're going to give you, and how much your income is, because usually they'll match you up to a percentage of your income, right? So, if you make $100,000 a year and they're going to match you up to 6%, well, okay, 6% of $100,000 is $6,000. So imagine you work a job, just say 10 years, right? So that's $6,000 a year for the next 10 years. That's $60,000 you got for free, which a lot of people don't even pay attention to, because that's above and beyond what your salary is, right? So you technically got paid $106,000 when your salary was $100, as long as you maxed out. Not even maxed out, as long as you contributed to your 401k enough to max out the employer contribution. So, let's just bring it down a notch, right? Let's just say you only make 50 grand a year and your employer matches you 6%. That means that you're going to get a $3,000 match on your 401k contributions, right? So you didn't make 50, you really technically made $53,000. So if you don't at least contribute to your 401k to get the full match, you've wasted $3,000. And then however long you live there, you're wasting $3,000 a year every year. So my $100,000 a year salary example, and you can make $100,000 a year with no college degree. Trust me. I got so many examples of people doing it. In fact, I was working a job where a guy was making $135,000 a year, and I work with the guy all the time, and he was mad cool. And we just started talking one day, and I was like, dude, how many degrees do you have? How did you get to your position? I started asking him different questions, and he was like, dude, I don't even have a degree. I was like, what? He was like, dude, I graduated high school. I got into this field, and I just started learning as much as I could. And I just kept, moving from job to job. That was another thing. Don't stay in one job too long, because most jobs are only going to give you 3 to 6% raises at the most, right? So what I realized was I would leverage these jobs to get basically free training out of them. So I could job hop. And every time I would go from one job to the next, I would get 10, 15, 20, 30% raises instead of everybody else just getting 3s and 6s. That's a good way to not get paid and not get, improve your financial situation as quickly as possible. But again, look at it like this. If the stock market is only going to pay you somewhere around 7 to 10% compounded on, this is just based on this S&P 500's history. If you're only going to get 7 to 10% compounding of your money through the S&P 500, I want to make sure I've fully maxed out anything else that could pay me a higher rate of return. So I want to make sure I increase my income as aggressively, as quickly as I can. And if that means I got to change a job every year or every 2 years, then fine, that's what I'm going to do. And it has not harmed my resume. I can get a job like any time, right? So people who are like, oh, you got to stay at a job for such and such and such, employers don't want to see you moving around too much. Man, bull. So I don't even let that slow me down at all. I'm getting this money. And then the other thing is that, before I invest in the stock market, I am not going to be carrying no high interest debt. So look, if you're getting 7 to 10% rate of return from the S&P 500, whatever, right? If you're paying 20% interest to your American Express card or your Visa card or your MasterCard or your Walmart card or your Costco card, or name your favorite credit card that's, charging you these high interest rates, why would you even think that you're getting ahead if you're investing in the stock market, getting let's just say you got 10% rate of return compounded from your stock market investments, right? But your credit cards are banging you for 20%. It's like, would you walk up to someone and say, hey, I got $10. Would you walk up to someone and say, hey, I got $20. Let me trade you your $10 bill for my 20. Like, who in their right mind would do that on purpose, right? So anyway, I just want to share with you guys some things I was thinking about. I was like training, I was getting my workout in, and I was like, yo, let me holler at my peoples. Happy Mother's Day for those out there, for the ladies that are following, and for the dudes with mothers or wives in their lives. Happy Mother's Day to those ladies. Drop me some comments, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you made it this far, drop a like for the video. Also consider subscribing, and I'm going to see you on the next one.